Last Pint Productions presents the New Way podcast. The New Way contains adult content, but since this is one of our special edition short episodes, we don't have time to record one of our comedic adult content warning masterpieces. I mean, we could have, in about the same amount of time it took to tell you we wouldn't, but we didn't. So there. Listener discretion is advised.
Let's say I don't die in a crash with bigger stars than me, and I actually get an obituary. I've lately thought that it probably is going to read actor Kevin Bacon, dead, no Oscars, but at least he has a game named after him. The 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. In case you haven't heard of this game, the idea is that any actor alive or dead can be connected to me through our work in 6 steps or less.
Everybody wants to be naked and famous. Everybody wants to be just like me and make it.
Will you help teach me about this? What is it? A new way?
Hello and welcome to a special edition of the New Way podcast, where we break down pop culture so you don't have to. These shorter, more bite-sized episodes will feature spotlights on locations, actors, actresses, directors, writers, and more. Less preamble, more amble. We're also still in the midst of the coronavirus, social distancing, so I'm operating out of the Last Pint Productions studio, but speaking via the video chat with Mr. Ben Wilson. How's it going, Ben?
Ambalone.
That's right. So I used to think it was Rambalon, or is Rambalon.
It is Rambalon. I just, since it's
you adopted
preamble,
it.
more amble.
There we go. The Ambalon.
Yeah, Ambalon is our name.
This special edition New Way podcast is focusing on actress Cate Blanchett. And so let's talk a little bit about Cate Blanchett. A lot of people, I think, incorrectly assume she is British, which she is not. She's Australian.
She's Aussie, and she actually lives there and has lived there pretty much the entire time that she's been working.
It's so weird because, like, I think a lot of people, like, they think Nicole Kidman and Naomi Watts and Hemsworth and there's a lot of ones, but I think because she blasted onto the scene in some British pieces of film, I think a lot of people actually think she is a British accent. She often does that accent, or British actress. She often does it in movies.
I think that's first off, that's a good compliment to the fact that she's a fantastic performer, and that she really doesn't employ. I can't recall anything where she's actively employed like her natural kind of a little bit Aussie accent, which obviously after working for years in Hollywood, her accent now, like her natural accent, you just hear her talking, it's like slightly Aussie, but it does kind of feel almost like more proper English. But I mean, the same thing happened to Kate Winslet. I mean, Kate Winslet's from New Zealand, and people don't, they equate her with being a British actor, and Kate Winslet was from like Marlborough, New Zealand, or something like that. That's the one. I even forget that one for sure. Blanchett's got 2 Oscars, 3 Golden Globes, 3 BAFTAs. She started her work as a stage actress in Australia, and she did a lot of work with Geoffrey Rush early in his career when he was he's another one that people I think forget hails from that area as well. And then she really burst onto the scene in 1988 with Elizabeth. 1998, not 88.
Oh yeah, 1998 is what I meant. And she played a young Queen Elizabeth the same year that Judi Dench also plays Queen Elizabeth, but an older version, for 8 minutes in Shakespeare in Love,
and won the Academy Award.
Wins the Oscar, and then they would go on to do a movie together called Notes on a Scandal. But she's probably one of the most revered actresses I think working today. I mean, she's on a short list of maybe in the top 3 or top 5 she's there. It's like Streep and Blanchett and
I think that speaks to kind of her. I mean, she really is very chameleon-like in her approach to major roles. I mean, like, it's not like she's a bit actor. She's had bit parts in certain movies where she does her little thing. Like The Aviator is obviously one of her better known performances, where she plays Kat Hepburn, and does a really crazy, like almost inimitable, like performance that it not only like captures like the cadence of Hepburn, but also like just the mannerisms and like, but while also kind of making it her own. It's not exactly like, it doesn't feel like some sort of farcical.
It's not a sketch where she's doing a Hepburn impersonation. She actually is a three-dimensional being.
It feels very lived in, and I think that's what Cate Blanchett does really well, is that she definitely makes like no matter what her motivations are for whatever character that she's playing, she does make every role her own. But I actually had the question because I was interested in what. I obviously remember Elizabeth, and I'm assuming that was probably your first exposure to the Blanchett.
Yeah, and it's really actually it's kind of funny. So I was in '99. I had left OSU and I was back in Florida for like an interim semester and doing classes at PBCC for a semester before I went back up over to UF. And my acting teacher, who I worked with in the Palm Beach Shakespeare Festival, he was actually a professor at PBCC. So I wound up signing up for one of his lit classes, and that was like January of 1998. So it was 98, 90. I'm sorry, 98, 99. So we got to talking about Shakespeare in Love and Elizabeth, and I remember famously, that year when I was back home was where I really got into movies, partially because I was stuck back at my parents' house. Right. And I always wanted to get out. So I would go and watch everything. Like I went and watched parts of Saving Private Ryan multiple times because I couldn't actually stomach sometimes making it through the whole movie. I'd get up to like Wade's scene and I'd be like, I can't handle this anymore. But I went and saw Elizabeth and I was like, I couldn't appreciate it at the time, and unfortunately, that teacher as well, he wasn't a big fan of it. We were big fans of Shakespeare in Love.
I mean, honestly, I think that the first Elizabeth is like any quality of that movie is entirely tethered to her performance.
Yeah,
I mean,
we agreed. She's phenomenal, but I thought that and I don't remember. I haven't seen it in so long.
The aesthetic of the movie is a little strange. It's a little off-putting.
And there's a lot of like, I remember we talked about they make these artistic choices of like she's like getting like deflowered or raped like on the night of her, like there are all these things that just seemed too neat and tidy. So I remember just not being a fan, but absolutely recognizing her and being like, holy shit, like who is this? She's so young. I've never heard of this actress before, and she comes out for, I mean, did a couple of movies before that, but really like she gets this leading role and gets an Oscar nomination for it, and everyone's just like, okay, this is someone to start paying attention to.
Well, it's so funny too because I didn't see Elizabeth until my freshman year of college because it was a free rental. I could get it from the FSU Film Library. But I remember seeing her in The Talented Mr. Ripley in '99. Which is a movie I loathe. I really don't like that movie at all.
Really?
I hate that movie.
I love Talented Mr. Ripley.
It's so funny because it's kind of infuriating for me to watch actually because there's so many parts about it I kind of like, but there's just some very strange choice. Anthony Minghella is kind of an interesting director for me, and that's maybe another talking point. R.I.P.
Yeah,
but he makes interesting choices in that movie, and I think that Matt Damon is just like woefully miscast in that movie. But that's personally I love Matt Damon, but I think that he is, it's not a great role for him in my opinion. A lot of people love that movie though.
I will say it did spur an SNL sketch with Ben Affleck where Ben Affleck is trying to get into Mango's dressing room, and he does it Mr. Ripley style and puts on the glasses and does a Damon impersonation that it made that movie worthwhile.
Yeah, for me, I remember that. I remember that bit actually.
Well, it's funny. So Ripley was one, but the one I forget about is a movie for some reason we bring up on the podcast quite a bit, and it is a very strange movie to bring up multiple times in any conversations, which is Pushing Tin.
Yeah.
And which I was
John Cusack's wife.
Yeah, in '99, and it's a movie that we've talked about how much we really enjoy it. I always forget every single time until I go and look at it that Mike Newell directed it. Which is unfathomable to me.
For those who don't know, Mike Newell directed the fourth Harry Potter movie.
And Four Weddings and a Funeral, and
yeah.
has been very heavily involved in British stuff. And Pushing Tin is like, it's John Cusack and
it's very Americana too.
Yeah,
it has a very kind of interesting, strange voice.
But I remember her, like, I remember she popped up in a bunch of things in 98, 99, like very quickly. And every time it was like, this person was just doing something interesting or an interesting choice or just like memorable, even when they were in these small kind of roles.
Well, and that's what I was going to say is that her role in Talented Mr. Ripley is the one really compelling part of the movie, because she essentially falls kind of prey to Matt Damon's character, who's a sociopath and is pretending to be Jude Law. But the whole time she thinks that he's Jude Law, essentially. And it brings about kind of the great twist at the end of that movie, which I think is a fun twist and is a really cool thing. But I just remember watching her in that and just being like, man, she's really like just got this magnetism about her. And at that point, and I remember thinking, like, what else has she been in? And that's the same thing, because she plays almost beyond her age.
Yeah.
In that movie and in
everything.
In Pushing 10. And everything. And even so then, she gets cast as Galadriel. And I love the story that she said, she was like, the reason why she said yes to Lord of the Rings, because she wanted to wear elf ears. She was like, no, it's always been a dream of mine. Like that was, she said yes before she read a single word of the script. And it was just like, yeah, I always wanted to play an elf. Like, it was just my dream. And I was just like,
for as long as I knew, I always wanted to be an elf.
that's the
good alphas. The good alphas. I will watch that movie.
Cate Blanchett.
That is actually, it's a really interesting point you bring up, because I feel that same way about, there's certain actresses like Toni Collette's another one like that Toni Collette like started playing older parts when she was younger, and she's been playing the same older parts for like 20 years. Like, exactly. That makes it seem like they're not aging just because they were wise beyond their years when they started.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, like, Blanchett is 51 now. So you think about like Talented Mr. Ripley and stuff like that. She was like 28, 29, but but especially like Pushing 10. I mean, like, she's got kids in that movie that are like 10 and 11 and 12, so it looks like she's playing 40, and they kind of make her up to her whole body language looks like she's playing 40, but she's 28 years old.
She's 10 years older than me, and I don't think I've ever once like viewed her as being just 10 years older than me ever. Like, she'd always seemed like this ethereal older woman, not that she's not attractive or anything like that, but it's like she just has she's wise person.
Yeah, she definitely kind of exudes something that I think that, like, and whether it's just her professionalism throughout like the course of all of the performances that she's been in over the course of the years, but it was really interesting watching her there at the beginning of her career, where she was playing these kind of supporting roles or whatever. Even after Elizabeth, she kind of got these supporting roles, and then. And also one of my favorite bit parts in Coffee and Cigarettes, she plays against herself. It's her playing her and her twin sister.
The cousin.
No, it's her twin sister, one of whom is like a rock star who's like all drugged out and whatever, and the other is like this prim and proper who's like just pregnant and about to have a baby. And it's this wonderful scene that it's Jim Jarmusch playing one Blanchett against the other Blanchett, and I remember seeing that and just being like, wow, like, she has got so much range, like, she's just incredible, like, because it was two just completely like the dichotomy of those two characters. I mean, they couldn't have been further apart, and it created a really interesting dialogue but between the two of them. And I also was shocked to find out that apparently a lot of that was written by Blanchett herself.
Yeah, I always remember that movie being sort of cobbled together from improv and writing and all kinds of things.
One of the shorts was shot in like 87. And one of the shorts was shot in like 94. And it was essentially 10 short black and white vignettes shot by Jim Jarmusch over the course of about a 15-year period. But apparently only 5 of them were actually shot like when it was released.
It's crazy.
Like the Bill Murray and with RZA and like with those guys, and a couple, and the black Jack White and Meg
Yes.
White one was new. But anyways, yeah, I remember seeing that and just being like, man, she's just incredible. Like she's so good. But then she started making her way more into like the leading role, like the
Well, I mean, she
really
does-
kind of empowered women characters.
She does The Gift in 2000. So I mean, that hits.
Yeah, I mean, and that was
Was a pretty big, and I mean, it's a movie famous for young men for a completely different reason, as we've talked about on the show before. But, but it is, it's a really well
nearly
done
spit out my
movie.
beer.
And she's very, very good in it. And that was where I started to really kind of understand, like, okay, this person keeps showing up, but they're so different in each of the things they do. And then we get into the Lord of the Rings stuff, really, which is that's such a sprawling cast with so few females in it at all. And the fact that, that she and Miranda Otto and Liv Tyler really do such stellar work in those films that they are very memorable amongst a gigantic cast of just dudes. Like every dude doing the dude thing.
I still love that there's some great reaction videos to watching the Cate Blanchett like flip out scene in as Galadriel, where she's like, because she was one of the few elves that had one of the 12 rings of power.
Yeah.
And so like she has this moment where she kind of like becomes this all powerful sorceress. And I still remember it's just totally out of place in that movie. But it's one of the best scenes in the movie. And I just remember there's some great reaction videos to like people watching Lord of the Rings first time. They're just like, what the fuck? Like this woman's out of her fucking mind. Like just going crazy. But no, she was absolutely just brought some gravitas to that role. Like as she's always done for pretty much every role that she's ever done. But I'm kind of interested also in like that. In the 2000s, she really kind of hit this stride as far as like her filmography is concerned, where she was doing a lot more, she was the kind of the main focal point of the movie.
Yeah.
She was in Tom Tykwer's movie Heaven, which was originally conceptualized by Krzysztof Kieslowski, who
I do not know this one.
Did the Trois Couleurs
sure, quite a fan
trilogy. I'm a huge fan of, and I would say Heaven is probably the best movie she's ever been in.
Really?
Oh yeah, I mean it's it's her and Giovanni Ribisi, and it's absolutely just powerhouse performance. I mean, I'm a huge Tom Tykwer fan. I'm going
to put it on my list right now.
He directed Run Lola Run, and then later went on to collaborate with the Wachowskis with like Cloud Atlas. He's done a lot of great stuff, but that movie and her performance in that movie is absolutely just astoundingly good. That was 2002, I believe, and I still remember watching that. They created a special camera rig just for that movie, where they basically attached a RA35 millimeter camera to balloons.
Oh wow!
It was pre-drone technology, but they wanted these like sweeping shots, but they didn't want to do them with a helicopter because they wanted to be able to capture nat sound.
Yeah.
So they basically had the camera on balloons with like a little rotor system. So they had this giant balloon thing flying around the set so they could capture nat sound without there being,
that's
really
insane.
Really interesting stuff. Apparently the rig was used for years, for like 5 or 6 years. And then all of a sudden drone technology started coming out and people started using it more. But yeah, I think there in the 2000s, she really kind of started being more and more,
well, and she works. It's another. I always like to see when we do these kind of 6 degrees, and you look at actors that we've chosen. One of the reasons behind at least why I'm often picking them is looking at who they've worked with, who they've acted alongside, and and what directors they've worked for. So I mean, in between 2000 and 2010. She's working with Wes Anderson. She's working with Soderbergh. She's working with Steven Spielberg in arguably his worst movie that has ever been made.
Fincher.
Yeah, like she's all over the place with these directors that are obviously interested in
Hughes,
her talent and what
Alan.
she can do. And it's and I want to hold off on to the Alan one because that might be my favorite thing that she's done that just like really floored me. But yeah, I mean, she's in The Life Aquatic, which was that was kind of an interesting turning point also for Wes Anderson's career, and that you've got Bottle Rocket and Rushmore and Tenenbaums, which all kind of still fit in a reality, even though they're like hyper reality. And then with Life Aquatic, he goes just, pardon the pun, way off the deep end, and you're in this like almost science fiction type world, and that cast starts to open up, and I love seeing somebody new thrown in there. And what's kind of interesting with her as well is that it's not like she doesn't do a lot of repeat stuff. Like she does it, like she works with somebody, she does her thing there, and then that's like, okay, I've done that, I want to go tackle something new. She doesn't become part of that repertory company for Anderson or for a lot of these directors. Soderbergh she's worked with a couple of times, but and
she seems to kind of jump between genres too.
Yes.
Like her next movie, I think, is a genre picture that Guillermo del Toro is directing. And I'm like, I'm on board already. Like Guillermo del Toro, Cate Blanchett. I mean,
well, and that's where, and I think that's kind of interesting. If you look at her, I mean, her career is really only 2 decades, kind of at this point. That we're looking at it really is that 98 to like 2010, 2010 to now.
If you really look at it, I mean, like her career didn't really start until she was 29.
Yeah. And I think when she hit 2010, I mean, and just to look at I mean, obviously The Aviator is just I mean, first of all, The Aviator is the movie that Scorsese should have won in my opinion, should have been winning his Oscar for over. I mean, I love The Departed, but I think The Aviator is just a phenomenally good film. It's a phenomenally well cast film. And I
like the casting in that movie. I still think The Departed's probably a better movie, but that's my.
They're both. Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of both.
I think The Aviator is a little too sprawling for me, but yeah,
I'm a sucker for sweeping biopics, especially when I don't know. Like, I didn't know much about Howard Hughes, so it's kind of interesting to still
want
see
that Jim Carrey.
I still want that Jim Carrey Howard Hughes movie, absolutely. But yeah, her Hepburn, as we said, is such a lived-in creation it's one of those when you talk about how many people are capable of pulling off a role or doing something, and that really is just something that I don't think anybody else. I think that's just the time. It was the right time. It was the right actress, and she just fucking kills it. Kills it.
I mean, and same thing, kind of like right around that time. I think that probably the most press, I don't know if it was unduly or not for her, but the most press that she ever got was working with Hughes, one of the few people that she's worked with twice, when she did I'm Not There and playing Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
And it was a very controversial, to say the very least, choice to have 6 different actors playing Bob Dylan at different parts of his life. And strangely enough, her Dylan felt more kind of Dylan-esque than most of the other actors who played Dylan, who were men.
Yeah.
So I mean, one of the main things being that it was right kind of in the sort of pinnacle of his career from a timing standpoint. So that was obviously, I'm Not There was, I think, a big moment. That was 2007, I believe.
That's 2007, right? That same year that she does it's so weird to call it a sequel, but she does Elizabeth the Golden Age. Like,
it's a terrible movie.
Yeah, I didn't read very good things about it, and I tend to like avoid
bad reviews. It was like, oh, Cate Blanchett's in it, we're just going to give her an Academy Award nomination because she's playing that same role again. Yeah,
I whenever I see those things kind of pile up for somebody I like, I just tend to not. I'm like, I don't need to go see. I don't need to tarnish, my opinion, especially because in that next year, by the time that movie got around to where I would actually be watching it, was when Crystal Skull came out, and that was such a devastating blow to me for like part of it just being that Spielberg was on such a phenomenal run between 2000 and 2008 when that movie came out. Catch Me If You Can, Munich, Minority Report, are in 3. I mean, you can argue The Terminal. Listen, if you put Hanks and Spielberg together, I'm there, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, but
fun fact: they shot The Terminal in 16 days.
Yeah, Yeah, and Spielberg, I'm sure, edited it in like a fucking week because his machine runs so fast. It's unbelievable. But and even Blanchett can't save something like Crystal Skull. Like, and that's how you know a movie is falling apart. Like I think Ford phoning it in.
Yeah, this should be a new barometer. Just being like, if Cate Blanchett can't save your movie, you're fucked.
Yeah, and it's a slam, like, oh, Cate Blanchett playing like a Nazi, Russian Cold War, like early Cold War thing. You're like, yeah, this is gonna be great. Like, how do you fuck that up? Like, you have to actively sabotage things to make that a bad performance,
or you just hire David Koepp to write your script.
Yeah, that's there's the Koepp script is part of it. The Lucas involvement is a way big part of it.
If it had been just Darabont and Spielberg, that movie would have fucking rocked.
Yeah, it's that one hurt. And then she kind of like then we have the Robin Hood movie, the Ridley Scott Robin Hood with Russell Crowe, which is not great. But then there's a little movie that happens before, at least I'm looking at my like truncated filmography here of the things that like I know of hers, but I know. So she does a movie called Hannah, which they have now turned into like a TV series.
Joe Wright.
Yeah, a really great movie. In fact, you and I were talking this week about going to the drive-in. I saw that movie at the Lake Worth drive-in.
It was playing this week.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not kidding you.
That's fucking hysterical. I saw that movie at the drive-in. It's on like Showtime also or something right now as well. I watched half of it the other day. She's so damn good in that movie, and it's such a scary,
essentially the villain role.
Yeah, 100% the villain role, the mother.
But that's a movie with Eric Bana and Saoirse Ronan as father and daughter.
They've like training the daughter to be this super soldier, and there's this whole like Little Red Riding Hood theme that they use throughout, with the idea that Blanchett's like the big bad wolf and hunting it down.
I just remember that whole sequence at the end of the movie where they're like in this abandoned theme park, and they're these like gigantic, like monolith looking like alligators, but they look kind of strangely like sarcastic.
It's a super creepy abandoned theme park.
And it's a very, very like that whole end sequence. And of course, the last line of the movie is fucking phenomenal.
Yeah, that's a great movie. If you're looking for something weird or strange or new to watch that you haven't heard of, I definitely recommend. It's weird to call it a fun movie, but it was
directed by Joe Wright, he had done Atonement before that.
So weird that's such a weird 1-2 punch to me. But
no, I think actually Atonement and Hannah have a lot personally, but just thematically. Because they're both very
thematically, yes, but the execution's very
well. Hannah is very like where Atonement's very sweeping and kind of beautiful and
a period piece.
In a period piece, Hannah is very like kind of sharp and cold,
techno and German.
Yes, but still thematically, I feel like they have a lot in common, and the performances I feel like are very.
There's a great turn in that movie.
It's pretty incredible. I mean, we have Joe Wright to thank for Saoirse Ronan. Saoirse Ronan's become one of the greatest actors of this generation, and
she's probably on her way to Blanchett level. If she's not, I mean, she's could argue she's there, but I think she's gonna hit that apex for sure.
Yeah, but so Hannah's that's a really interesting movie because I think Beth and I saw Hannah in the theaters. And just because I was really interested because it was Joe Wright, and I was like, and I remember walking out, and Beth was like, "I'm not sure I liked that," and I was like, "I thought it was badass." It
was weird because I think I saw that with my friends Chris and Bridget and Adam and Bevan, and I don't know why we chose it. Like, I had not seen Atonement at that point, and I think honestly, even if I had, I don't know that I would have put 2 and 2 together that it was directed by the same person. But I don't know why we found ourselves. It's like, hey, we're gonna go to the drive-in tonight, and let's watch this movie called Hannah in it. I mean, maybe it's a good previews. I don't know. But the next one for me after that, and I don't know what you've got on your list, but Blue Jasmine, which was her foray into Woody Allen territory.
I was going to talk about Curious Case of Benjamin Button.
Okay,
really fast because that come out I think 2008 or 2009.
God, I totally forgot about that.
I will say that that's one of the few movies where I feel like she's kind of miscast. But again, I think that's also Fincher. who has such a very specific directorial style that doesn't really allow actors to breathe that much, if that makes sense.
You mean when they're in the midst of doing 175 takes
Yes,
to
of
get
course.
a scene right? Yeah. That
To me, and like one of the reasons why The Social Network works so well is because everything feels kind of truncated and very fast. And of course, we're going to talk about The Social Network a little bit later too today. Hey, by the way, we record some of these back to back, so
surprise,
surprise. But I feel like a lot of times Fincher kind of works against his actors, and I think that was the case for Blanchett and Benjamin Button. She's fantastic and fine in the role, but she plays different ages. Like young Blanchett in that movie, I totally buy, but for some reason, our Maven Lee, who is usually the older Blanchett, I don't buy her in that in the role later in the film as Benjamin is getting younger and younger, and it's kind of a strange thing. But I think a lot of people do really like her in that role. But I don't feel like she had she didn't have the meat to work with. I think that she does.
Sorry.
Okay, fine. You laughed. You're the one who did it.
That's why I said sorry. I apologize for myself. I couldn't help it. I have to admit, I have to confess something. I have only seen the first, I think, 30 minutes of The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, and I've never seen. Like, I started it for some reason, and it didn't really. It wasn't that I disliked it, but I never finished it.
That movie pisses me off a little bit, but I don't love that movie. Blanchett does as well as she is possibly capable of doing, given the constraints that somebody like a Fincher would put kind of around her. Whereas that it's like you're not allowed. Like he's looking for something so specific. You can tell he's always looking for something so specific. It's not like she can just go out and explore this character and just like it's not like he's gonna let the camera roll for 10 minutes and let her explore that character or not. He's gonna coach for exactly what he wants, and then get that.
Which I think you as well both say that as a Fincher fan, but he is rough on his actors.
I would say I'm a casual Fincher fan. Like I like when his aesthetic works for movies, it's perfect. But there are other stories. Sometimes I'll watch a Fincher movie or a Fincher property or something that's along those lines. I'm just like, it doesn't work for me. I need more heart.
Yeah, heart. What is this? This is David Fincher. There is no heart. There's blue and more blue, Ben, and that's all we get.
What is this?
Look at this guy.
From cups.
I would like to see David Fincher's drinking from cups. I will say that would be an entertaining property for sure.
That would.
But Blue Jasmine. And
so that's the really interesting thing is since we're segging to Blue Jasmine is because I'm a huge Woody Allen fan. I've always been a huge Woody Allen fan. A huge influence on me as far as writing is concerned. And I loved that if you go online and you watch, like GQ does this great thing where they have actors kind of talking about their careers. And the best story from the Alec Baldwin one was him talking about Cate Blanchett and him doing a note perfect Woody Allen, which I can't do, where he's like, he kept stopping the scene and just being like, Kate, you're at the end of your rope, and just kept doing like, you don't understand. You're at the end of your rope. You're going crazy here, whatever. And she was just like, okay, or whatever. And then apparently at one point just went outside and like smoked a cigarette, and then it came back in and was just like, I'm fucking ready. Like, let's just do this. And he was just like, I'd never seen like an actor who was just doing the same thing over and over again, was finally just like, you know what? Fuck it. Like I'm going all out or whatever. And he was so impressed. Like the fact that Alec Baldwin was just like that's his recollection of Blue Jasmine is how good Cate Blanchett is, working with somebody who is as micromanaging as Woody Allen is, who is known for micromanagement.
Yeah. But Baldwin, by the way, will absolutely show up on one of these, one of our things on here, just because you mentioned two things about him that are completely correct. He is an encyclopedia of film stories and film history, and he's also an incredibly good fucking mimic, and he remembers every line, like he not only will mimic the thing, he will actually say the entire scene from memory, of movies he's not in that he just remembers shit from, which is crazy.
He's definitely one of those, like,
He's a film nerd.
If you had 1 hour with any actor at a bar just to have a beer,
He's there,
with,
yeah.
He's got to be one of those guys.
I'm
because it's
100%.
like, yeah, I mean, like, just imagine the shit that guy has to say.
God,
but
he's got stories.
But yeah, it was incredible that, like, he didn't ever talk about his own performance in Blue Jasmine. He was only talking about Cate Blanchett and how wonderful she was, and obviously that curtailed into she became one of Woody's women, which is
Well, and she's she's playing a. So obviously, Alan has kind of surrogates. If you haven't noticed, in his films, sometimes they work out better than others. I would say Kenneth Branagh's a surrogate in Celebrity is not one of the highlight ones, but a lot of times Alan's women are love interests or whatever. And Blue Jasmine is one of the few that really is just, it is a showcase on her. She's plays a not a lunatic, but she plays a she's an unhinged pill popping, just kind of crazy New York. And it's one of those, again, where the accent is so fucking dead on and good that if you just showed that to someone who does not know who that is, they're like, oh, that's just some, like, he got
Upper
someone
West Sider.
from New York and came in and just like killed this role. It must be some like New York stage actress. But that one, like, I can be hit and miss with Alan's stuff from time to time, but I really just that her performance in that movie just fucking, it's uncomfortable to watch. It's manic. It's a crazy fucking good piece of acting.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think that 6 different women have won Best Actor or Best Actress or Best Supporting Actress from Woody Allen films, and that one is. I mean, there are a few that are better deserved than Cate Blanchett in that movie because she carries the entire thing. I mean, really, ultimately, it's as a movie. I would put it right in the middle of Woody Allen's filmography. It's absolutely not a Manhattan or an Annie Hall or a Sleeper.
It's a single performance,
or even a Match Point. It's nowhere close to any of those. It's a performance-based movie that she absolutely carries.
And I think what's kind of interesting we're kind of segging into her, even though she does something like Blue Jasmine in 2013, but from like 2010 to 2020, she starts to really branch out into more mainstream and fun stuff. And whether you say that this is like paycheck work for her or not, I don't ever really know. I don't ever feel that she phones shit in when she does it, but her filmography becomes a little bit broader in the properties that she tackles, even in just the last 5 years, whether it's voice work in How to Train Your Dragon, which is always I always love the casting in that movie of like,
well, I mean, How to Train Your Dragon's I think
phenomenal. One
of the best animated properties of the last maybe 20 years. So, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily a cash grab because it's so perfectly voice cast, and you can tell that the creators care about it so much that they want the best possible people. And
I don't know if she was a fan of the first one or they just called her and they brought her in for the second and third. I don't really know. I know that she delivers, and I think it's a fantastic franchise, and it is. I mean, that first movie just ending with this idea that this kid is injured and the animal is injured, and they keep that in, and that was something the studio was like, you can't do this. You can't you can't hobble this boy hero in this movie.
And the second movie is so dark too.
Yeah,
it goes to some really dark places. It's a very that's a pretty adventurous franchise. I think,
sure.
for kids.
And then she works with Kenneth Branagh playing the evil mother in Cinderella, the evil stepmother. When there were like the warring Cinderella movies and the warring Snow White movies seemed to happen in a 4-year period for whatever.
She was perfectly serviceable in that role.
I have no issues. I mean, listen, watching great actors chew scenery will always be entertaining to me. I
do like that one of the evil stepsisters was Elizabeth Moss.
That works pretty well. But I
forgot who the other one is because I just know that one is Elizabeth Moss.
Well, and I think, I mean, obviously, because this is the new way, we do have to talk about, she did a film alongside an actor very near and dear to our hearts. But she appeared alongside.
Wait. Scatman Jones?
No, not. I wish. It's kind of close though. You're not far off. She appeared next to famous actor James E. Hoot Gibson in the film and Terrence Malick's Song to Song. So that's, don't want to forget that little gem in 2017.
And she hasn't worked with Malick again. Imagine that.
She has said she's worked with many actors, and James Gibson is one of them. And that's all we need to say on that. But so you have How to Train Your Dragon, you have Cinderella, and then we're huge film geeks. But she shows up finally in the MCU. I'm sure after being chased. I imagine Cate Blanchett probably that was not her first meeting with the Marvel executives, if I'm guessing correctly, that she probably had been brought in at multiple times for different things. But the cast is.
Yeah, I'm wondering what it took. And I'm assuming it's Taika.
She really, I will say, she so much liked working with the director that she got upset with him when he was shooting the TV series of What We Do in the Shadows, because there's a spoiler alert if you've not watched the first season of What We Do in the Shadows, but there is a famous episode in the first season where there's the Vampire Council that gets visited, and the Vampire Council is made up of famous actors who have played vampires in major properties. So you've got Wesley Snipes as Blade. You've got Paul Rubens from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie. You've got what's her name from True Blood?
Is Kiefer Sutherland in there?
No, so Taika talked about all the people they contacted and tried to get into it. And so he goes, I got a call the day after the episode aired from Cate Blanchett being like, why was I not in this?
He was like, you never play a vampire?
He goes, you didn't play a vampire. What am I going to do? I can't put you in that. And she's like, you're fucking an asshole. like she legit was like, I can't believe you did not ask me to do this. I would have done that in a second. But yeah, I think her work in Thor is, first of all, it's sort of funny that you've got now.
So in Thor, she plays the villain.
She plays technically the sister of Thor,
yeah,
who is also an English character, an English accented character played by an Australian.
Yeah.
The two of them doing their best British off of one another.
There are lots of these.
Yes, there are quite a few. But yeah, I think she, what's great about her work is she's got great comedic timing, which is, there are a lot of very good actors that don't necessarily have great comedic timing. It's a very different skill set.
One movie that we didn't mention that it goes back, actually, just talking about her comedic timing, is 2001's Bandits.
Oh,
she was in Bandits too, as well.
That's Bruce Willis,
it was Bruce Willis, Billy Bob Thornton, and I remember them saying that about half that movie was improvised, and it was all just about like these kind of grifters. And the whole idea, or the kind of the atmosphere around the movie, was just about these people just being kind of fast talking, kind of bouncing everything off of one another. And she was totally at home, like in between these two veteran, actors, and Billy Bob Thornton and Bruce Willis, and totally held her own and had tons of like room to kind of grow her character there. So yeah, she from early on, she definitely displayed some chops as far as the comedic timing is concerned.
And you can see it in what she's, in her choice of properties, because she did show up on TV in a series called Documentary Now. And Documentary Now is Seth Meyers.
Family Guy.
Yeah, she did playing her Elizabeth character in Family Guy. But yeah, Documentary Now is Seth Meyers, Fred Armisen, and Bill Hader, all from SNL, put together basically a fake documentary show hosted by Helen Mirren, who is basically introducing all of these. Basically, they're mockumentaries, but they're making fun of specific documentaries,
very specific, famous documentaries.
And so hers is, and I
still
forget
waiting for the Buena Vista Social Club version.
It's gonna happen. Her one was, and I don't know what the actual original documentary was, but it's basically about this performance artist. the entire episode is her. Like it is above and beyond anything they've done on that show. It is a one person basically tour de force. And she fucking I just 100% kills it because she plays it so straight and dead on, and with a very like it takes someone understanding where the joke is to know how to play it straight to get the laugh from the joke. Like that's something that the late great Fred Willard was very good at, is knowing how to like deadpan something that feels like it could be real, but it's a gag. That show is just a great show to watch in general. But that episode especially, if you want to dig that one up, is 30 minutes of just pure gold by her. And then, I mean, to me, the most recent thing I saw her in, she just did an 8-episode series called Mrs. America, where she played a not super great human being, Phyllis Schlafly, who basically attempted to derail the feminist movement throughout the 60s and 70s and 80s, and still, I think, continued beyond that, even after she sort of lost. It's a really it's another one of those performances that's very unique to her, because you really have to, you don't ever like her, but you absolutely do see some of the driving force behind her antiquated and unpopular opinions.
Yeah. We'd probably be reticent not to mention that through her career, she's done some pretty amazing stage work. I mean, she has won 2 Tonys, I think. I remember, I was just trying to look it up right now. I couldn't find it off of the top of what I was looking for, but I remember, so she played Blanche in Streetcar Named Desire. And Meryl Streep saw the performance before it opened, like she saw one of the preview versions. And she said that Cate Blanchett's performance of Blanche in A Streetcar Named Desire was the single most impressive stage performance she'd ever seen in her entire life, and she never thought would be topped.
That's an impressive...
So when Meryl Streep tells you that you've done the best you can possibly do at your job, I think you're pretty good.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, like, I think that you could just kill me the next day.
Yeah. You got to think, what does that feel like?
Fucking heart.
What does that feel like to hear that? That's kind of just be like
Meryl Streep's thing. And like I said, I was looking for the quote because it was just so articulate and wonderful. But she was like, I know every word of that play. And I memorized that play when I was 15 years old. I had never seen that play, and I will never experience that play in the way that I saw it tonight. Like, it was like something along those lines. It was like that powerful to her.
Jeez,
and she was like, she was just like that the role became something completely different than it was on the page for me. And so I was just like, Jesus, well, okay. So that shows you right there, the chops that Cate Blanchett has, and is, she's a modern acting marvel, and she's in Marvel movies now.
I think that's a great place to put this one to bed. I mean, holy shit. How do you top Meryl Streep telling you you're the best? That's it. When Tom Hanks tells me I'm the best, you can kill me, and I probably will just die of shock anyway. But
it's just going to be a seal that sounds like Tom Hanks.
When he tells me I'm the best, it's going to be after I serve him a sandwich at a Subway, and I give him extra packets of mayo for free. He's like, thanks, you're the best.
You're the best.
That's the only way I'm earning that one.
I'm out.
Want to thank you so much for listening to The New Way. We'll be back with new episodes soon, and we'll talk to you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.